Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new video. It is Ryan, and this is going to be one of my retrospective videos. We're going back 10 years to 2006 when the Wii came out. This was quite an exciting time for Nintendo and for gamers alike because Nintendo, as everyone should know, is very known for being different and doing something brand new that we're never really expecting. They took a big risk doing this, and it paid off really well, and I'll talk about that more in this video. Now, the Nintendo Wii came out, I believe, in November of 2006. So it actually came out this month, and I think it's only appropriate that I release it in the month that it's been 10 years. Now, I remember my first memories with the Wii. It was quite a system, quite an interesting time in games. Nintendo was still taking risks. They still basically they listen to their fans, but at the same time, they want to do something different and that strays from the path. And they've always been like this, and a lot of people like to call it gimmicky and everything, where I kind of think of it as more of attempting to be innovative and to come up with something new. Now, with something like this, where you're doing motion controls, and it's almost like a virtual reality type situation where your actual physical movements dictates what happens on screen. Nintendo has tried this before, but they failed pretty miserably in most people's cases of how they judge the situation with the Virtual Boy. Now, there's a big case towards that it was a huge failure simply because there were only between like 5 and 10 games were released for the system entirely. And I mean, it just like virtual reality is nowadays with like the PlayStation VR, the Oculus Rift, and so on and so forth. Playing it for any longer than like 20 minutes can be nauseating. I personally have never experienced VR this way yet. However, when I do get a chance to try it, I'm going to give it a shot and give my actual thoughts on it eventually. But, back on topic, this was a step in that same direction as the Virtual Boy and then even the Power Glove. They take motion controls and you have to move around with the Wiimote and nunchuck in hand. In like if you're playing Zelda Skyward Sword, you're swinging the Wiimote around, and it's just like using the sword and slashing things, cutting bushes down, or attacking enemies. It's something like that it sounds really, really fun to play, except for the people who just want to hold on to a controller and play games that way, which is understandable, but the Wii wanted to make this a very different kind of system, and it really paid off. In my opinion, it definitely paid off. One of the big things Nintendo talks about when they talk about the Wii is that their marketing strategy for this was to market to pretty much everybody. This was a console system that everybody wanted to own. And I'm talking about from your kids to people like me who are a big fan of games to older people. I personally know of places like nursing homes who have actually purchased one of these systems so that they can use it as like a type of exercise or a rehabilitation for older people, and they play like the Wii sports games and stuff on there, and they can bowl and everything without ever having to leave the nursing homes. And that's quite a thing that I personally did not think I'd ever see in my entire life. When it comes to video games have always been viewed as something that kids play with, or teenagers, the youth, I should say. Games are normally marketed towards the youth. Whereas with the Wii, they went further beyond and above expectation, and this is a system that everybody wanted and everybody could own and play and get used to, and it wouldn't be very difficult. The Wii is pretty user friendly. There's only a few instances where I've ever felt frustrations with this system. Now, speaking for me personally, I have never gone out and purchased a system day one, but when it comes to the Wii, this was as close as it got. I remember staking out my local stores, and I had some expendable money at the time, and I really wanted a Wii system, and I wanted Twilight Princess. It looked absolutely amazing, and I wanted it. I wanted it so bad, and I heard it was backwards compatible, and I was astonished. I was in love with the games that were presented to us at launch, especially with Twilight Princess. I couldn't wait for the system that I had to go and buy it as soon as I could. Now, I remember that it wasn't even the first day, and just like normal fashion for Nintendo, they make a product, but they never seem to make enough for the general public, because they're also never anticipating that it's going to sell out instantly. They really should start from now on. Like Nintendo, if you ever catch wind of this video and me talking about the Wii system, let that personally be a lesson to you that you can never predict how many people are going to buy these systems, but it's a safe bet that the first day that your systems are going to sell. Not just by Nintendo fanboys, not just by enthusiasts of Nintendo, but there are other people who are going to look at your system and they're going to find something about it that they like, whether it be for themselves, for their children, or just friends. It's like the whole idea with the whole Nintendo Switch. It looks awesome. It's too early for any of us to tell whether or not it's going to be a success or not. Everyone has their doubts, and even I have some of mine. However, the look of the Switch, the feel that you get when you're watching that trailer, and I've watched it probably 8 or 9 times by now, this looks like a system that I would love to own. Now, with the Wii, it was the exact same feeling. I felt that feeling again when I watched the Switch video as I did for the Nintendo Wii. Now, the thing with the Wii is I also got to try it before I ever owned it. So, about a month or two in, when Circuit City was still around, this is back in 2006, I actually did have a Circuit City in my area. I went there one day knowing that they were going to be in stock. And I went ahead of time, and I was like, you know what, I need to get there early because I don't think these things are going to be there long. I was fortunate enough to be like the third person in line that day, and I got there probably 2 hours before the store opened. So, but at this point, it was also at least a couple months in. A lot of people who were chomping at the bit to get the system just like I was had already gotten theirs. And of course, I'm a little more patient, so I waited it out, and I ended up sitting in the Circuit City parking lot for, I believe, an hour and a half in my car before I went up to the line, and that's when people started to pour out. And as soon as I saw the first person get out of their car and go and wait in line, because keeping in mind, this was January, I believe, because it came out in November, so it would have been around January, maybe even late December, that I went and picked this system up. It was frigid cold. New York weather sucks. Anyone from New York, you can contest to that. And leave comments down below if you want to complain about New York weather for this video. But it was definitely quite an experience because I don't normally do things like that. And back in 2006, this looked like it was going to be such a fun system, and I was not disappointed. This is, in fact, one of my favorite systems, probably in my top 5, and there's so many reasons for it. And not even including the the GameCube backwards compatibility. There were a lot of quality titles. Yes, there was a lot of shovelware that you had to worry about, but there was a lot of quality titles in this system. And the Wii definitely made a statement that year when it was released in 2006. But of course, the Nintendo Wii had raised the bar for selling over 101 million consoles worldwide, and that is as of this year, 10 years, and the count is up to 101 million. Obviously, they're not in production anymore, so that 101 million is going to stay 101. But 101 million consoles. Now, I don't know the exact numbers of like the PS3 or the 360, but not only did it outsell both systems, but I'm pretty sure it outsold both systems almost combined. That's pretty crazy. And you'll hear most people say, well, it was a fluke. Nintendo, they threw something against the wall and it finally stuck. This was a brilliant system, though. Anyone who says that they've never gotten enjoyment out of the Wii is at least partially lying, in my opinion. I mean, of course, it sounds a little ignorant to even say that, but you look at Wii Sports, you look at the Zeldas, you look at all the Marios. Those games are extremely fun to play, and when you're in playing one of those games, especially like the Mario Galaxies, oh my god, both of them were phenomenal. 2 expanded on the first, but the first was revolutionary in the 3D Mario game. It was just, when you were playing it, at least from my personal experience, when I started playing Mario Galaxy, and I was still even, I didn't know how I felt about the controls at all times. I thought they were really good, but it wasn't until I played games like Mario Galaxy where you were just seamlessly playing this game, and you didn't think anything of the controls. The controls just came natural, and it was fun that when you shook the controller, Mario would spin and do kind of like an attack against any nearby enemies and get them dizzy, and then you just jump on them and you kill them. It was just absolutely seamless. You were playing the game and you never really completely realized that the motion controls were a big deal, because they really weren't. The motion controls it came naturally, which is how video games really should be. And that's why a lot of people kind of gravitate towards, oh, I just want a controller. It's easy. It's something that I can easily pick up. But once you actually sat down and played a game on the Wii, most cases of playing any game on the Wii, it was seamless. You started playing it after 5 or 10 minutes, you got used to the controls, and then you were just playing the game, just as if you had a controller in your hand, except you have 2, and they're not attached to each other except by a big long cord. I mean, the Nintendo Wii really brought something brand new to the table. It may not be for everyone, but anyone who's tried it has at least given it a shot and thought that it was not awful. There have been many cases, like in Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort, all the Zeldas and Marios, like I keep mentioning, these games are quality to their core, and the motion controls, they are not something that you regret playing with, because they're not hard to pick up, and after a while you don't even realize that you're using motion controls. Now, another feature of the Wii that was never really introduced through Nintendo until the Wii was their Virtual Console, which I think they knocked it right out of the fucking park. Their Virtual Console was the best. You could play games from the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, the 64. I don't think you could do GameCube. I believe with the backwards compatibility, they would rather just see that you take all your old GameCube games and then you would go and throw them into your console and you play them that way. And it was just really, really cool that they had such a huge library. And it wasn't even just Nintendo products, because there were even like TurboGrafx 16 games on there, which is a system I never really even knew about until the Virtual Console. I was a Nintendo guy. I had a Super Nintendo growing up, and my grandmother had a Nintendo. that is what I grew up on, was Nintendo. Even I had heard of Genesis, but I only had a few friends who ever had them. And I didn't mind playing them, they had fun games on them too. But I was Nintendo to the core when I was a kid. Looking back on it now, I wish I had gotten more experience with different consoles, but Nintendo was a reliable company for me. There were certainly some older games I would have loved to see on there and download to my Wii console, but when I had a Wii and when I bought one, I was not heavy into collecting like I am now. I was more of like a casual gamer. I bought the systems that I wanted to play, and I bought the games that I wanted to play on them, and then I got opinions from other friends and stuff, and once I played the games and formed my own opinion, I would choose whether or not to buy them. I didn't have money back then either. I only had the little bit to get what I wanted, and I had to save every single penny in order to get this stuff. So I had to formulate my own opinions, but I got opinions from other people, and I would take my 60 bucks, 50 bucks, and I would buy a game, and that would be the game that I'd be playing for a while until I saved more money. Now, there's a lot of shovelware to go with the Wii. There's over 1,000 games for the Wii. But even with all the shovelware, it is very possible to find some really, really great games. And now for this last portion of my video, I have 3 games that I feel you absolutely have to check out. 2 of them you may not really know about, and the other one you might know about, but you were kind of on the fence about. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. And the first one we're going to go with is the game that you may have known about, and it came out on all the other platforms. I believe this game played extremely well on this system. I have played it on the other consoles, and they're fun across all platforms, but I feel this is one where people thought, oh, I have to use motion controls to play this one. I don't know if I'm going to like it. But I can contest that I beat this game all the way through, and it was super, super, super fun to play, and it was completely worth the money. And that one is Ghostbusters, the video game. And this, I don't know what it is about just Nintendo graphics too. The thing with the PlayStation, with Sony and Microsoft, their big thing is to make the most technical graphics, period. Graphics, graphics, graphics. Everyone loves graphics. And where I also love seeing beautiful images on my TV, you can do that with a movie too. I think the reason why I gravitate towards Nintendo games a lot more than PlayStation or Xbox is simply because there is the stroke of imagination that comes through in the Nintendo games that I feel PlayStation and Xbox seem to miss. I'm not saying that they're not creative in their own rights, but if they have a chance to release a game that has graphics that basically looks like you're watching a movie, I think they would much rather take the risk of the game being crappy but looking absolutely beautiful over taking a chance and being creative. And with this game, I can't say that there's no exception. This is no exception. However, the art style for this is much different. I don't have any other copy than this one currently, but I would eventually like to own the one for the PS3 and actually beat it again, because this is a really, really fun game, and it'd just be interesting to kind of compare controls between, obviously, the Wiimote and then a normal controller like the PS3. But the one big difference that most everybody will be able to see is that when you buy it for the 360 or the PlayStation 3, the characters, your Ghostbusters, actually look pretty detailed and closely to the characters in the movies. I'm not saying that these ones don't, but these are also clearly like animated characters, if you can see that really closely. They clearly don't look like real people. It's not that it's bad by any means, and personally, I don't think it looks bad at all. I think that this art style for it is very, very cool, and I really enjoy it. But it doesn't look exactly like the characters. It clearly looks like animated versions of those characters. But I think that kind of creativity that Nintendo shines through in most of all their video games makes this a game that you absolutely have to check out. Not just for the graphics, not just for the controls, but because this is a damn good game. and it is a gem on the system that I feel like people do not talk about. Now, the second game I'm going to talk about is actually more of a kid-like game, or at least that's the way it appears, and a reason why people of my age or people who just really like games like Call of Duty and things like that would get turned off by this. But this is a game that's really, really fun to play. It's a great series. There's 2 of them in the series for the Wii, and that is The Blob. This is the second one. I do own the first one too, but these games are super, super fun, easy to pick up and control, and the difficulty level actually does progressively get harder. So this isn't like a kid's game in the sense that you're going to be able to beat it in like 4 hours or less. This game does have challenges, and it has a lot of collectibles too for completionists out there. This game, it also just looks beautiful. Again, the creativity of Nintendo, they get me almost every time with these games. But this is definitely a gem that flew under the radar for most people, in my opinion. These games are super fun. You could play them with just about anyone. I feel like if I asked my grandmother, hey, you want to play this game? She would gladly oblige. I think she would love to play a game like this and would find it kind of cool and funny. And the whole point of this game, I mean, Ghostbusters kind of speaks for itself, but with this game, you are a blob whose world is being taken over by what basically is like a dictatorship. And their job is to turn the world black and white, so there's no color. And your character, the blob in this, is going to change that and bring the color back to his world. THQ, you definitely hit it out of the park with this game. Now, this game is also across all platforms as well, but again, the Wii motion controls, I think, help bring this into a more immersive experience, and I absolutely enjoy this game, enjoy the series, and I think you will too once you give it a shot. Now, this third gem is a game I constantly talk about, and I constantly mention that this is really an underrated game and a gem, and people do not know this game exists. It's an extremely fun platforming adventure type game, and it's made by one of my favorite companies, Hudson, which you may know them from back in the day being called Hudson Soft. They made games like Adventure Island, they made Bomberman, and Bonk. They made Bonk too. And all those games are phenomenal, and they pull out the stops in pretty much everything they ever make, and they do really, really well. I constantly put them up there with companies like Atlas for game companies that just, they know exactly how to make games, and they know how to make them an experience that you'll never forget. And without going any further, the game I'm talking about is Lost in Shadow. Now, as the title suggests, the whole Shadow, it seems like a darker type of game, and it really is. It has a really dark tone to it. Embarking on a Shadows adventure, journey through a land in shadow, manipulate light, complete your quest. This is definitely a game I will recommend to anyone who likes platforming games and likes a story that doesn't unfold itself right in the beginning, and it's just, this is a really fun platforming game, and it's very different. I think the thing that caught my eye about this is just the concept and the difference in this game in comparison to a normal platformer. What I mean by a normal platformer is you have someone and you're going from, usually you're a side-scrolling platformer, or at least in this case you definitely are, going from left to right until you get to the end of the level. With this, it's a little bit different because the whole premise of this game is that, as you can tell from the photo, you are indeed a shadow. Nope, right here. You are a shadow, and you have a little guy who's basically like Navi, but in a bubble. What stems this game different from any other platformer is, instead of being a person going from left to right like a normal platformer, you are actually a shadow trying to reconnect yourself with your original body. And as you go through the level, you manipulate the shadows of your objects around you to make pathways to get you from left to right, or to get you to a specific item that you need, or to hit a switch. You basically manipulate the shadows of your surroundings to move the actual objects, and as you switch the shadow around, it makes it so your shadowy figure can actually move from platform to platform. And that mechanic is very different. It strays from the normal platformer that we get nowadays, like with your Mario's and everything. They definitely did something really, really different with this. And the dark tone, I mean, I personally love Majora's Mask, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, over Ocarina of Time simply because of the dark tones. I actually enjoy the dark tones within that game. It makes it all more real, I guess, in a way, showing real consequence. This game does similar things that Majora's Mask does for me as well. And this is a game that I recommend to everybody. This would be probably the one gem on the Wii that I would recommend first over any other. And I really feel like you should definitely check this one out. And that is going to be it. Thank you so much for watching. It's been pretty great reliving these memories in my own head and trying to convey them to you. The Wii is only 10 years old. It seems like a long time, 1 decade, but at the same time, it does feel just like yesterday. I was sitting in the parking lot of Circuit City waiting to pick this bad boy up, and I've never looked back. I go back to my Wii constantly playing some of these games, and I'm constantly finding more gems. Seeing as how that there's 1,000 different games on this system, there's a bunch of shovelware, sure, but there's certainly some gems in there, and I would love to find more, and I can't wait till I go back out looking for more games for this system. But that's going to be it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button. Leave comments down below. Let me know what you think about these retrospective videos I do. I think I'm going to make it a point every year to release a bunch of these, especially for games that hold a place in my heart. If there's any games that you would like me to, I don't know, enlighten with more information on or anything like that, or if you just want to know my personal experience with a game, leave that down below as well. And of course, if this is your first video by me, hit the subscribe button if you like what you saw. Thank you so much. Take care, guys.